Welcome. It's great to see you all on this beautiful Tuesday morning. I know that we are low on attendance, but I'd like to respect all of you who have made it here on time, dot at 10. I hope that you all have had a good start to your week and have had the chance to soak in this gorgeous sun that has been out in the last few days. I'm Sandy Nathan, Community Impact Manager at Eastside Pathways, and as you see, the sun makes me a happy girl. Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce my awesome team and request each of you, as I call you out, to give your signature wave. Stephanie Charrington, our Executive Director, running the deck behind the scenes today. Kalika Curry, Community Impact Manager, my facilitation tag team partner. Peyton Richardson, who's not with us today on this call, he's our Data Officer. Vicky Yu, our Operations and Business Manager, ensuring that everything moves along seamlessly behind the scene. This is our backbone staff. Thank you again for joining us. Let's move along, and very briefly, I'll give you, just walk you through the virtual logistics. We have seen this multiple times. As you can note, we are back to recording these meetings. The chat transcript, the differentiated work that each of you is doing in your focus groups is all available on the Google Drive, the link to which will be available in your follow-up email. Like always, if you're new, please add your name, organization or community's name, and the email address in the chat box. I can see that a few of you have already started doing that. With that, let's begin our convening today with our gracious space question. Gracious space is a spirit and setting that helps us get grounded in the work that we are about to dive into as a collective. So today, I have for you learning in public. Learning in public is the theme for today, and it is one of the key elements of gracious space. Learning in public requires humility, a willingness to explore assumptions and let go of the right way of doing things, a willingness to change our minds and open our hearts. It also means being willing to express in a respectful way our own thoughts and feelings so that others might get a chance to understand and learn from us. The risk of holding too tightly to viewpoints or just too closely to expertise might result in stopping you from listening to the insights in others' lived experiences. With this gracious space today, we hope to continue to create a space to engage in deep listening as a collective, with a commitment to learning with this diverse group that we have gathered today. To give you an example, in our backbone team, we have realized over the months and years of working together that some of us process things out loud, and some of the others need a pause to really absorb and sit with what we are experiencing before we can share it. Some of us thrive in confrontation and others not so much. To give you an example that's more relatable as a part of this group, you all have participated in affinity fishbowls in this container. The working agreement was for most of you who are not participating in the affinity fishbowl to play the role of an observer, an active listener. We recognize that as you move into your focus group, there is an opportunity or even a potential discomfort around providing feedback around some of the technical things or other more challenging, adaptive, and high heat topics. Like say, talking about racial equity or holding each other accountable on working agreements. But the hope and expectation is that you have the relationships to bring that consciousness and the tools that are offered to you to stay in the heat. Continue to have those tough conversations as you work more closely to drive results. Being mindful of the fact that each of us, each person has a preference for how they share and receive information has really helped, at least in our internal team, helped us to create a constructive environment of learning and working collaboratively. So today, for your gracious space, I'd like to invite each of you to take a few moments, about say 30 seconds, to self-reflect on how you tend to offer feedback to others' ideas. 30 seconds to jot that down, center yourselves around how you offer feedback to others' ideas. All right. And now, when you are moved into pairs, please share with your partner how each of you offers feedback and see how that might land on the other. So you have the gift, the opportunity to experience that dual consciousness. Share how you offer feedback and how that might land on the other person. You will see the gracious space question in your chat box as Vicky, by the power of Zoom, moves you into your pairs in just a second. You'll have 5 minutes to discuss how you offer feedback and how that might land on the other person. I'd like to invite you all back. As you're resettling into this large space, taking a moment to think about and making a note to yourself about the response that you received, the critical feedback that you got in your pairs. I'd like to invite a few of you to share your experience in your pair and how might you adjust how you offer feedback based on what you heard. Who'd be willing to unmute and share the experience that you had, sharing in your pair about how you offer feedback and how that might land on somebody? Sue, I see that you've unmuted. Would you like to share?
Well, our group, Helen and Ward, we said when we're at our best selves, we listen, we try to maintain everyone's dignity, not push them into a corner, ask questions, and this didn't come up in the thing, but put the filter on. Hear your words, see your words, anticipate a reaction so that you're not going after somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Sue. Fernell, I see that you have unmuted as well. Would you like to share?
Hi, I'm Fernell. I have to admit, we talked about lots of things in our pair, but one of the things as I'm with children a lot is eyebrows up. That's the curious. Like, did you mean to say that? What did you mean by that? Meaning, I teach them about their face first, because a lot of times when we're talking about microaggressions and all kind of things, and learning, and people's face will tell what what's going on before their words do. And so I like to be mirrors to kids especially, but adults it kind of works too, but mirror back what they're mirroring to me, so then they can get a gist of what was that, or how was that, or whatnot, and then that curiosity can go from there. But I'm really used to using myself as an example. I was telling Benjamin, I said I have a lot of costumes in my closet because my creativity has to be off the charts in elementary school, and I talk in pictures. I would have a word picture or some kind of analogy to go with it, and so I'm also just able to use that intellectual humor to bring a conversation around to, are we talking about the same thing? What are we talking about? Let's talk about it more, kind of thing. So I make myself the transparent learning, so then that will bring it all around, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Fernell. I liked how you emphasized on your expressions, speaking as much as your words, and being conscious of that. That's really, yeah, thank you for sharing. Is there anybody else that's willing to share? Feel free to unmute.
I think I'm unmuted.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so for Cassandra, I was just listening in and doing it from my computer because I thought I would just listen, but when I got put into a room, I couldn't get sound or video, so we ended up chatting, and it was just a real reminder of how people with different abilities and with different handicaps, whether it be being deaf or not being able to see or not having internet access or having poor internet access can really, really affect. You can't even give feedback when you can't even have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure, sorry, I'm Jay Geller, and I may have just lost you. Yep, there we go. I'm Jay Geller.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that reflection. Can we take one more person who can speak to how might you be willing, from the feedback that you received, how might you be willing to shift how you offer feedback?
This is Jamie with Kids Quest Children's Museum.
Hey, Jamie.
And one of the things that I've do when listening for feedback or when giving feedback is I tend to ask a lot of questions, and that can come off as either argumentative or debatable, and that's not always my intention. So one of the things that we were discussing is that things that I have tried is to use an I wonder statement instead, to really let people understand that it's more that that's what's happening in my brain, is that I'm wondering, and then just instead of just firing off all the questions that are coming up from the ideas or what I've just heard. So that's something that I know I have tried, is that I wonder statements, and then also maybe not wondering all over the place, all over the time, and listening and just wondering the biggest wonder and asking that one.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jamie. I think you beautifully spoke to how different personality types process information, and how me not being aware of how you do that might come across as, like you said, argumentative, or like you're just debating with my point versus just asking me clarifying questions out of curiosity. So that is really helpful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
With that, thank you everyone for sharing. If you have any thoughts that come up for you in response to your Gracious Space experience, please feel free to share it in the chat. I'd like to move us along. Moving forward, thanks, Stephanie. Moving forward, here are our results for today. The Backbone continues to convene you all, designing these meetings in a way that we can all work to strengthen this container and go deep into each of our differentiated work in our focus groups. And we're going to continue to do that today as well. As a group, you have built working agreements to define a culture for this container. And every time that you come together, and as you move the work along in your focus groups, you're holding yourselves and each other accountable to those agreements. You know, I remember Peyton saying in the last meeting, I wasn't there, but I went back to the recording, this work is messy and it's tough and exhilarating, all together. It is important more now than ever before that each of you stays accountable, stays in the messy and adaptive, and keeps showing up to work through this process. You know, also recognizing that coming here and talking to people and building these relationships and these connections is results. Recognizing the progress that we have made since we started in March is results. Building an action plan, which is what each of you will be doing as you get ready to launch campaigns in your respective groups, is results. So really, I'd like to take a moment to thank each of you for being here, believing in this process, and recognizing that this work isn't an add-on to what you do in your lanes of expertise. This is a platform that really supports what you do in your respective lanes. This is the work. Shifting how systems, shifting how each of us works together so that children and people have what they need to thrive, that is the real work. With that, I'd like to invite on Stephanie to remind us and ground us all in her charming way on how all of this that we are doing is collective impact. Take it away from here, Stephanie.
Thanks, Sandy. I just wanted to take a moment to allow us to ground our minds again, and just kind of reinforcing the comments that Sandy just made. have been doing this collective work for about 9 years now. And I have to take moments along the way and stop and reflect on, this is a different way of working. This is so much of almost the antithesis of how I was brought up in school and in my professional life before. You're so focused on the programs, if you will, so to speak. And actually this work is all about the systems. One of the sayings that we have in this work is that we are programs rich and systems poor. And something to really recognize is that the systems, we are the system. Each one of us is the system, as parents, as neighborhood members, as community members, as part of an organization. We make up the system. And it is in this work of stopping and reflecting, allowing ourselves the time to reflect, that is so important. I think it's so ingrained in our culture to go, 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 to measure our productivity on the number of emails that we answer, or the number of things that we end up putting out. And what ends up happening so much is that we keep putting the same things out that tend to be Band-Aids, if you will. And it is really in changing how we are working together, improving how we're working together. This work right here is what is going to change the system and improve the system, which is us again. And so part of collective impact, of course, is that common agenda. We all have to understand that and be agreeable to that common agenda. And as community members, parents, neighborhood members, parts of organizations, we have a role in that system. And so we have to continue in that role, but we have to have those mutually reinforcing activities that, again, work to improve the system so that we eventually do get better outcomes for children, youth, and families. And so measuring this work in particular is important. And we're going to have another step in just a minute of doing that. How are we doing in improving how we're working together? Continuous communication is really critical. And we know that coming together in this way and really focusing and improving how we're working together, improving our own policies with each other, our own practices with each other, don't happen on their own. So you have to have a very intentional focus. And that's our role as part of the backbone, is to facilitate and convene and help guide and focus this partnership. And so that is just the recognition. I just want people to really take a moment and think about, when you come to these calls, how are you thinking about this work that we do together on a weekly basis as part of the work that you're actually doing on a daily basis that has to be supporting that work? It's not separate. So many times we want to, again, just jump to the end. We have to look at how the systems are changing. So in that spirit of measurement, I want to bring up a survey. Just a quick question. You guys have seen these before. Vicky's going to bring this up. It's our opportunity to really reflect and think about how participation in this virtual meeting is, and you can choose all of them or some semblance of those responses. So if you can take a moment and respond to that. And then, due to these virtual meetings, what difference do you feel have been made? And you can respond there. So take a few moments and respond. I know it takes a bit to read through them. About halfway there. Thanks, everybody. Couple more. Okay. All right, with that, thank you for taking that moment to reflect and give the feedback, because this measurement for you, for us, is really, really important, because again, this is the work. So I appreciate you guys taking the moment and giving that feedback for our common measurement. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Kalika.
Thanks, Stephanie. I was just taking a moment. We get the pleasure of seeing your results as they're coming in, so I was really just taking a moment to sit with those, and not to share too prematurely here, but just really loving seeing and resonating. A lot of you are offering that this work and being in these calls is helping you be more present and understanding the resources that are available in their community, and at the same time recognizing the gaps in services recognized. And I think that's really relevant to the work that we're continuing to do together here today. Last week, if we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. One more. Last week, we spent some time working together on your graphic organizer or your equitable results series fish scale. And I gave an example about, really the goal here as we're recognizing those gaps in services is not to reinvent something new, as Stephanie was speaking of, but really being able to diagnose and think about what can we do differently with these systems that already exist in place, and how can we maximize or tweak the things that we already have at our fingertips. And as we were speaking last week, I gave this example of school lunch programs and recognizing a group, an example or made-up group might have had a dialogue about kids being ready to learn, and recognizing that nutrition is a big part of that. And through some exploration, that group may have discovered that some focused population of the youth who are not receiving the nutrition they need to be ready to learn have food allergies. And so we talked about, as you work through the Echo Results series, recognizing we want all kids ready to learn as the goal. And there's a focus on youth who are not getting the nutrition they need, and even deeper is youth who have food allergies. And as you continue to work down that group may have just explored an idea of switching from peanut butter to a seed butter, just a small, tiny change, right? And as you all worked on your fish skills and came back from your focus group time and reported and shared your results in that graphic organizer, one of the noticings is, and some of the coaching we talked about as we closed out last week, was talking about making sure those key factors in your fish scale really are adaptive, meaning that no one in your group has a solution for that. The other thing is making sure that those key factors you're working on really do get to root cause, get to that systems change that Stephanie was just talking about. Can we go back a slide, please, Stephanie? Thank you. One of the tools that we recommend when getting to root cause is called 5 whys. If you haven't seen that before, it's pretty straightforward. It's just asking yourself why 5 times. And the idea is that each time you ask yourself that question or ask the group that question, you're going a little bit deeper. Off to the right here, you'll see an example of that iceberg that we shared with you a while ago, recognizing at the tip of the iceberg was the event, something we have a tendency to react or respond to. So-and-so didn't eat lunch today. Oh my gosh, right? Versus a pattern of behavior. So-and-so doesn't eat lunch every day. And through that example that I gave, we had talked about, you know what, as our group, we really have a heart for, and we want to focus on that all kids are ready to learn. And we're recognizing that not all kids are ready to learn in the classroom. When we ask ourselves why, the answer to that might be they're not eating regularly. There's a pattern of these kids not eating. When we ask ourselves why, as it relates to that focus population, the answer might be we're providing options that they're allergic to. So if they eat, they would not be well, or they're just choosing not to eat because the options we're providing are inappropriate for them. If we go deeper and ask ourselves why, getting to that system structure, how the system is designed, the culture, the practices, policies, and procedures, the idea here might be our school nutrition process was developed with universal thinking. This idea that all kids love PB&J, all kids love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And we might now think, wow, that's maybe culturally irresponsive. That might be undermining the fact that some people have different nutritional needs. We know now that food allergies and gluten intolerance are more common knowledge. And then a little bit deeper behind that is acknowledging that the way that we think, the way that we believe, the way that we feel, our values are rooted in that universal thinking. And as Stephanie was talking about us being the system, we have to acknowledge that as we are leading the work, our values, our belief systems influence how we lead, take up our roles and how we drive systems. If you're looking at those orange boxes on there, that's where we really want to focus. That's where we have a collective accountability and responsibility and have the opportunity to disrupt and take action together. So as you're working your groups, you want to use this 5 why methodology to ensure that those key factors are really targeted at that system structure, because that's where we're going to create deep change. And that level of change is going to influence the patterns of behavior and the events that are occurring in our systems. Before we move on, I do want to emphasize that purple section there, that deeply rooted piece around mental models. When we talk about relationships, when we talk about containers, and when in the gracious space that we had this morning talking about being able to provide feedback to one another, one of the things we talk about is being able to have the courageous, open conversation with one another to acknowledge the inequities in systems. And that requires relationships. So while we're designing and disrupting at the system structure, we also have to do that personal work to continue to chip away and change and broaden and open up our mental models and our worldview. Okay, I'm going to move us on to our next slide. So as you move into your focus group time today, know that we will be popping in to do some observing and coaching and support. As always, know that there is the ask for help function in your breakout group, so don't hesitate if you need support. Inviting you to use the link that'll be popping up in the chat box here to open your workbooks and continue to work into that graphic organizer. Just keep going from the top and working it through and making sure you're not leaving anybody behind in your group. Are we all on the same page about what we have here? Does it make sense? Does it bring us all along? Does it bring all of our consciousness and lived experience along? That is the adaptive leadership work that's going to lead to the systems change. That's going to lead to building that coalition we talked about last week that invites you all to work together to disrupt at that system structures level. So if you haven't already, try using the 5 whys to get into root cause and your key factors. And the other piece is taking a moment to look around your group, thinking about the group composition. Does this group represent, speak for the people that you're looking to support or collaborate with? If not, today would be a great day to figure out how to make some action commitments to validate your work with them. So before you get too deep into the work, you've brought the people along so that they can be a part of this process. Again, don't hesitate to ask for help, and Vicky's going to be moving us into our focus groups in just a moment. All right, looks like we're all trickling back in here. Thank you all. Again, just continue to remind us that this is the hardest part of the work. This is the hardest part of the journey. And again, really appreciate you sticking with it, especially as we're jumping in and out of your spaces and doing that interrupt coaching. And just want to honor the purpose of today's meeting is really to make sure that we're going deep and we're sticking to the adaptive and recognizing that our brains immediately want to solve for things, right? Once we figure out something and think, we think we know how to figure this out, but just want to continue to go deep, center those who are impacted, center those who we want to collaborate with, center those who we want to change the outcomes for. And so just really wanted to thank you all for sticking to this work and inviting you to take this offline and take that practice of 5 whys with yourselves as you move through your work throughout the day. And, you know, if you're seeing you're involved in a moment that is a pattern of behavior, something you can predict every day, I see this happen in my work, maybe just taking a couple moments to ask yourself, why? 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 I invite you to take that practice with you. And I'm going to hand things over to Sandy to close us out.
Super. Thanks, Kalika. Welcome back, everyone. I'd like to tie this back to our gracious space. You all had the opportunity to learn in public with each other. You had an opportunity to develop a better sense of each other's heads and minds. So today, I invite you to share from your gut instinct or feeling space, or from your space of knowledge, inviting people to share, acknowledging that each of us processes information differently. Jamie initially had spoken about that. Some of us process information as feelers and some of us more as thinkers. So today, I'd like to invite you to check in with me and reflect on why is this work, the work that you are doing in your focus group, important to you. Speak to how is that critical to your heart and mind. How are you connected to the results and the impact of this work? In these calls, we have seen and heard from people who said, I am from the focus population that you're trying to solve for. This is my community that you're speaking about. I need this work done. So that's their relationship to the results. We heard from parents who wanted it for their families, their children. We've heard from community individuals and volunteers who are passionate to support this purpose. We also heard from representatives of organizations who are here for the connections, for this cross-collaboration platform to work in collective impact. So I would like to invite you, I'm now opening the floor, asking you the question, what in this work is close to you? Why is the work that you're doing in your respective focus groups important to you? How are you connected to the results and or the impacts? Please feel free to unmute and share. This is a little different from what we have usually been doing, summarizing the work that you do in your focus group. This is really reflecting on yourself.
This is Tina. I can share.
Hey, Tina.
So the group that I've been working in is about how we can connect kids socially outside of the academic platform when we do virtual school. And my nephew moved to Washington recently, so he only had half a year as a freshman in high school and didn't make many friends, and is already has always struggled with a little bit of social norms and how to function in society. So it's very close to me because I feel for him, and I feel like he's gonna miss out on making those connections that he needs to make outside of connecting with kids via video games. So how can he connect more and potentially in person too, because it's a different connection. So
thank you so much for sharing, Tina.
Mm-hmm.
Monica, I see that you have your mute off. Would you like to share?
Sure. So I would say why this work is important to me just generally is because I just love people so much. It sounds a little cliche, but I just love people so much. And I see I have two kids, one in high school, one in college, and I see so much pain among these people who are their friends. And I give a lot personally to their families. I go in and I identify their needs and I talk with them and I care for them and I give them clothes and whatever they need, but I feel like I can only impact a few people. So what I really need is collective impact. I need to plug in with another group of people, with a group of people who is looking at this from a systemic perspective, and so that we can take care of lots of people who are loved by lots of people, not just the little cadre of people that I love.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that, Monica, to recognize that we need system level changes. We spoke about that earlier as well. We are the systems and we need to reflect on how we work together differently so that more people and more youth can be impacted positively. Thank you for that. Lisa, I see that you have unmuted yourself. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, why this work is important to me. The families that I work with, I'm the director of a tutoring program. They're virtually all immigrants and refugees and have difficulty engaging in the virtual learning environment. And they came to this program because they were already having challenges academically. And so, you know, I have this concern that they will fall farther behind than the kids that can engage virtually a little better. So it's really important to me. I'm you know, in the beginnings of my 5th year, and I really just care on a personal level, and want to do everything I can to support their learning and also just their mental health amidst all of this, all of it. So it's very important to me.
Thank you. Thank you for that sharing. Is there anybody else that would like to unmute and share why the work that is happening in your focus group is important to you?
Hey, Sandy, I'm going to jump in here just for a moment
Mm-hmm.
and speak my truth and be a little courageous. And, you know, my job states that I'm a neutral facilitator in this space. And if you've been with me in physical space, I have a habit of literally moving my body to the side and saying, I'm stepping. Kathy's laughing because she's seen it. I'm stepping out of neutral. And as a woman of color in this space, I have to speak my truth. And I want to speak my truth right now to say, I'm hearing people holding leadership positions speak about their commitment and their passion and their knowledge to their work. And I want to invite that I personally am a person of color in our community. I personally am a mother of 3 children of color in our community. So I need this as a person in this community. So I just want to invite my person in here because I tend to hold my professional role as a facilitator in this space. And I just want to go a little bit deeper and invite the fact that I personally, as a community member, a graduate of Lake Washington School District, my children are also in Lake Washington School District, need change in our community. And that's why I'm here. And I'm thankful for all of you committed to helping support and change the lives of our community and our children. So thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking your truth in here, Kalika. Anybody else that would like to step in?
Yeah, this is Kathy Habib. I'm the board chair for Eastside Pathways. I'm on the funding group, and I think what Kalika just voiced kind of helped clarify in my mind. I'm a longtime Eastside resident, Bellevue and Kirkland now, and why this work is important to me is I am no longer satisfied with or proud of my community because of our Eastside cities, because we fail too many students and families of color, of differing of abilities, and we aren't living our truths of what we profess of, you know, how wonderful we are as communities. So we need to do better. So I'm here to help make sure we do better and we change the system inequities. And I'm going to shout out to Fernell because I watched her video of all those student voices on what we need to do to return to school in a better way, and it was incredibly wonderful. So thanks for now.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing. And Fernell, I saw that you unmuted yourself just before the others spoke up. Do you want to share why you are here and why this work is important to you?
I feel like I'm taking up too much space. I just wanted to second what.
Absolutely not. We absolutely love you sharing from your lived experience and the work that you do. So please go ahead.
Thank you. And I just appreciate being able to be in community. And I recognize lots of you from different communities. And as I said before, since the pandemic, I've been able to be in communities of color more than I have ever in my entire life. I'm 58 and I can show up big. I can navigate white space. It's an art form. I'm good at it. But what I didn't realize, and I think I've said this before, is how much more I could have been if I didn't have to go through all of that navigating and mental jujitsu and all of the ways that the hurdles are in front of me. And everyone behind me has higher hurdles. And it's work to do that. This meeting in community, getting to hear each other, see each other, validate each other, go forward and work. That's not work. That's how I want life to be. I want to live better. I don't want to survive. I want to thrive. And so I'm connecting myself with people who want to thrive, can help me thrive, can make it better so those hurdles aren't behind me. I get caught up on the word work. It's life. Don't you want to, that's the life you want? I want so much more, so much better. If you look in the eyes of young people, I want that. I want what they see.
Mm-hmm.
I want that brilliance. They have all the answers. If I don't get to see that, it's like my weather report today is I can see all those clouds, but I love that sun break that comes through those clouds, because that's where the youth are. They're breaking through. That's where all of our going forward in life is. That's what, you can't have advancement without the other side of the coin of somebody's, head being stepped on. So I want a world where we don't have to have anybody's head stepped on to go forward. I thought we were all doing that. I thought we all wanted that. I don't need it to be work. I just want it to be the way we live. So I need spaces like this, because I see how small I've been because I haven't gotten them.
Mm-hmm.
I could have been sharpened so much more. I could have been so more filled if I could have been filled with spaces like this. So that's why I'm just creating what I never had. And that's not work to me. That's just life. So
thank you so much for that. For now, that was powerful. This is the mode of life. This is life itself. It's not work. It's not a one-time thing. It's life. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Is there anybody that one more person who'd like to share? I see that Chris, you have unmuted yourself, and Sue, maybe we can get a word from both of you. Chris, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'll be real fast. I'll just say I've been a long time Eastside Pathways volunteer since it began, when we didn't have the benefit of a paid staff, which has improved the organization a millionfold. And I often feel like maybe because of that, because I'm not connected to an important organization doing critical work, that I often don't have the standing to be in this room. But I am feeling very inspired and passionate to keep my work going, because I feel like in this important time, this is easily the most critical time in our country in my lifetime, and I'm probably the oldest person in the room. So I'm just grateful for the space. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Everything that you do, every time that you have showed up for so many years supporting this work, and you continue to do so. Thank you so much. Sue, maybe one last word. I see that you're unmuted.
Okay, this will be just really quick, and I'm not going to get emotional here, but our country is everyone is supposed to have an opportunity. Well, I can't affect the country, but if we can affect at least the East Side and make sure everybody has a chance, there's no reason just our kids get to have it. It's everybody gets an opportunity. And so if we can do that, then we've started changing this country to the way it's supposed to be.
Thank you so much, Sue. One step at a time. Every time that each of you shows up, we are taking that one step towards driving system level changes as this carries forward in your own lanes. With that, I'd like to move us along. This was powerful. Thank you so much for checking in after the incredible work that each of you did in your differentiated focus groups. Can we move to the next slide, please? Information about this slide just gives you our email addresses of the Backbone team. Like I said, this meeting is being recorded, the cleaned up chat transcript, the work that you did in your Google Drive, the link will be shared in the follow-up email. I'd like to encourage each of you to really look out for those follow-up emails, because we are starting to provide pre-work to you, pre-reading material, which will really help move this work along. With that, thank you so much. Is there anybody? Yes.
Before you close this out, because I know we have a couple minutes, and I'm gonna use those few minutes. I want to unpack something I just heard Chris say about a huge, major shout out to the women that did this as volunteers. Like, ridiculous shout out, because we work really hard and we get paid I just like, wow. Thank you all for creating the container. Thank you for creating EP. Like, just phenomenal women. And I can say, as someone who volunteered and became paid staff, that like the leadership and mentorship that brought me into this space, cannot thank you enough for that. So I do not want to undermine the women that held this space down and continue to hold this community down before we had paid staff. And I want to unpack a little bit, Chris, when I'm hearing you talk about like who is in this room and who is not in this room. And I want to acknowledge that multiple perspectives, like coming from a technical adaptive leadership space, all that jargon, regardless of your age, your race, your job, your education, your economic background, every single perspective is necessary in order to do this work. So I want to make sure that every single person in this room knows that they belong here. I want to make sure that every single person knows that this work will not happen without you. I want to make sure that every single person knows that regardless of what you've been told, how you've been treated, the labels and stories you carry with you, you are powerful, you are incredible. We cannot do this without you. I need to make sure everybody in this room knows that. And know, Chris, that my heart was like, ugh, when I heard you say that, because you are so incredible. I see Jamie has her hand raised, or you're clapping. But I just want, thank you, clapping. So I just want to really invite all of you to celebrate and take a moment. This is so hard. We are all impacted. We are all going through so much. And I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up. And please never leave or come to one of these meetings thinking you are not phenomenal, because you are. We cannot do it without you. We cannot do it without you. Your education, your experiences, your race, your gender, all of those things add value to this space. Never think that something about you makes you less than in this room. Everything about you makes you more powerful in this room. The more different we are, the more amazing the solutions will be that come out of this room. So thank you for coming. Thank you for taking good care of yourself so that you can continue to do this work and create the change that Sue just talked about. Thank you.
That was absolutely incredible, Kalika. So thank you for grabbing the mic from me. Just the right thing to do. Can I request each of you to just unmute and give a big round of applause? Everybody, Vicky, can we do that magically? Big round of applause for all the amazing work.
For now.
This wouldn't
you guys are
be
amazing.
possible. Like Kalika said, this wouldn't be possible if any of you chose not to turn up for the next call and after that and after that. So thank you so much. So have a great day and enjoy the sunshine. We'll see you next Tuesday.